All right, I'm sitting here with my buddy Will, who the family didn't think liked me because I put down some rules and authority, and he was a little bit off his game. He probably is going to want to wiggle off my lap here in a sec, but this is the dog's roadmap to success. So as we speak. All right. So basically, the major problem with these dogs is marking in the house. I don't think it's accidents. I went over remedial potty training techniques with them, but I really think it's more of marking. Now, it wouldn't hurt to actually reward the dogs in the way that I went through in the remedial potty training. Now, if you're looking for a breakdown of that, if you go to doggoneproblems.com, click on the link that says Dog Training Tips, and then search for remedial, just the word remedial. A couple write-ups will come up of other clients that have a similar problem, and there'll be videos in there specifically where I talk about all the details from remedial potty training. So make sure we're going to change the word to business, and we're going to start rewarding the dogs when they go so that they actually have the proper association. But when it comes to marking, marking is not an accident. It's very different. Marking is a way of asserting itself. Now, we have basically really only one rule for these dogs, and it was for Chloe not to get on the furniture because she's the bigger dog and she sheds. And so we have two other little dogs. This is the little kind of, I don't say the puppy, but the youngest dog, so he's going to probably push the boundaries the most, right, Will? Yes, he's like, yeah, I want off your lap. That's all right. And so I think when we have three dogs, they're all kind of jockeying for that first leadership position because the family just really loves, especially Will. He gets all the love. But if you give love without any structure, just like for children, you create a petulant child. And so I don't think we have a petulant dogs here, but I think we have dogs that don't have the right perception of authority. So what we went over is a number of rules to start changing the leader-follower dynamic. One of the rules would be something, he would be breaking it right now, not being allowed in the furniture. We wanted a dog in the shot, so this is why he's up here. But no rules, no dogs in the furniture or in the beds for 30 days or as long as the marking is still going on. This way the dogs see a literal distinction between human and dogs. And I've read a number of case studies where that was a really big one. Other rules that we incorporate would be not being allowed to be within 7 feet of a human who's eating, not being allowed to be in the kitchen when somebody's preparing food, having to stay away from the door where people answer the door. Now, I went through the door claiming exercise, which is how I label it on Doggone Problems, and there are a bunch of videos that go through that in detail, but I think the family's got that down. I'd like to have them practice when each one of them comes home, text or call the other people who are home, door exercise. If so, the people in the house are going to act like they're just relaxed watching TV. The person is going to ring the doorbell, not use the garage door, and not come in. We're just going to knock, wait, and keep on practicing so that the dogs eventually learn that our job is to stay 10 feet away from the door. The humans have security under control. Security for the pack is a really big one for dogs, and so if the humans can demonstrate that they have that under control and train the dogs to stay 10 or 15 feet away from the door when guests arrive, that's going to go a long ways towards the dogs no longer feeling it's appropriate to mark in the house. Now, while the dogs are marking in the house, we may want to consider cordoning off parts of the house, especially rooms that they're having a lot of accidents in, temporarily. It's a big pain in the butt, but we really want the dogs to avoid having the ability to do that so we can generate new neural pathways of the acceptable behavior. Now, we went through, training the dogs to use the dog beds. Anytime we take away the furniture, we like to incorporate a dog bed. We assigned a different word for each dog bed. The guardians may want to put a Post-it note above that dog bed so we know what the dog bed name is and everybody's on the same page. Speaking of names for commands, a lot of humans come up with 7 different command words for every command action. So I'd encourage the family to come up with a list of all the appropriate commands, and if possible, come up with fun command words. For something new, don't say bed, say spa, or something that's going to generate a little bit of a fun response. And make sure that everybody in the family is using just that command word. So if we come in and somebody's saying, come here, over here, or here, boy, we say, vocabulary. The person says, up, here, or come, or whatever the word is. By consolidating that, it's going to make it a lot easier for the dogs to understand what's going on. Now, when we pet a dog, I like to pet a dog under its chin to facilitate a nose-up orientation. That's what dogs do when they're proud of things. So petting them on top of the head, like there, created a downward nose orientation. Dogs like being caressed and they like being scratched, but they don't like being patted. So we want to avoid that. Now, I don't always have to scratch on the chin. I can scratch the butt if the butt is closer, but we just don't want to avoid patting on top. Now, instead of saying good boy or good girl or good dog, we're going to say just the command word. And say it in the right articulation. Don't baby talk it or over enunciate it. That's part of what I went over with petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is not petting the dogs when it demands attention, but instead we're going to give it a counter order, and when it does what we want, like sitting, we're going to pet on its chin and say the word sit. After a while, instead of scratching or jumping up for attention, the dog's going to come and sit in front of the human and say, I'm sitting politely, can you hook me up with some attention? And we want to do that as much as we can. Passive training, same thing. Every time the dog comes to us, we're going to pet it and say, come. Every time it sits down next to us, we're going to pet it and say, sit, or crash, or chill, or whatever the command words are for these things. Coming up with fun command words really can help because dogs can read our facial expression. I'd also like the guardians to come up with a naughty dog name for each dog. So when they're doing the wrong thing, instead of calling him Will, which is going to make him less likely to come to us next time we call him by Will, we're going to say the word, call him Wonka, or whatever the word is that you want to use that's going to be his negative or his naughty dog name. Let me see, what else? Will, you should enjoy it. This is the last time you're going to be on the furniture for a while. Another rule that we went over was the door. Have the dogs have to sit before we let them in or out of the door. At first, start with whatever direction the dog wants to. So the dog wants to be outside, start with it inside. Then do it both ways. And again, we say sit once. If the dog doesn't sit, we're going to walk away, wait 1 minute, go back to the door 1 minute later and give it another opportunity to sit. If it doesn't, next time we'll walk away for 2 minutes, for 4 minutes next time, for 8 minutes the next time. Dog has to wait twice as long before we're generous enough to give it another opportunity to sit. For Zoey, she doesn't like to always go all the way to the yard. Sometimes she poops on the steps, especially during the wintertime. So what we want to do is basically train her to go to the bottom of the steps. So I'd have the humans go down, and this is something we went through in the remedial potty training. Have the human go to the bottom of the steps. As soon as she gets to that last step, we're going to give her a treat and say yard or down or whatever the word means that represents all the way down at the bottom. Now, after you've done that for a week or two, you should be able to leave a treat or a couple treats down there at the bottom of that same location and have her run down there, and she'll run down there and get them herself. Just every time she takes the treats, say the command word. This is the same thing we did for the dog bed. So as soon as the dog's taking the treat into their mouth, about a half second later, then we're going to say the command word. And just the command word, not good sit, not good dog, just sit or down or come. Let me see, the door answering ritual, again, there's videos on my website, so you might want to search for that, and that would be something the guardians would do. Now for that, make sure that you're blocking off this side and the other side, so this is the only entrance to the door. Otherwise, the dogs will continually try to go around you. Eventually, you can leave those open, but we want the dogs to learn that they have to sit behind the line and watch the humans handle it. Like I said earlier, security is really, for the pack, is really important for the dogs. Feeding. We're going to start feeding the dogs in a ritualistic way. So the human is going to eat first because dogs eat in the order of their rank. What I do is I put food in all the bowls, then I keep the dogs 7 feet away using the third escalating consequence that we went over off camera. Once we do move the dogs away, then we're going to walk backwards so that we're outside away from the food and there's nothing but air between the dogs and the food, just like we did in the kitchen exercise. And then we're going to eat a chip or a cracker, something that we can eat in 5 or more bites. When we're done, then we're going to feed the next, the senior dog. In this case, it's Chloe, unless Chloe's being a pain in the butt. If she's whimpering and whining, trying to push through, and Willy here is being a good dog, I don't see that happening, Willy, but it's possible. I know. So then we might let Willy come in. We're going to remember, we're going to reward balanced, quiet behavior, not the excited behavior. Same thing when we come home from work or come home from school. If the dogs are bouncing around, jumping up when we pet them, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're rewarding. So in that case, we're rewarding an unbalanced behavior and another thing that we don't like, jumping up. So instead, we're going to wait for the dogs to calm down. When they're nice and relaxed, we're going to reach over to pet them. If they start wiggling, we pull our arm back and continue along our business. Eventually, the dogs will learn the only way the humans are going to engage with me is if I'm calm, sitting on the floor. As soon as I try to jump up or get excited, they will move away. If your timing is precise with that, after a while, they will learn that, but it's going to take a little repetition. Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. So it's really important that we practice these things as much as we can. Now, another exercise that we didn't film, but is on my website, is something I call the leadership exercise. That's where we put the treat of high-value treat on the floor, in the middle of the floor, and we walk away without saying anything to the dog, and the dog has to lay down before it gets permission to get it. Now, you can watch some videos where I describe that in greater detail, but at first what I do is I keep on doing that until the dog's laying down right away like Chloe was. And I would do this with one dog at a time. Once we get to the point where Chloe's laying down right away, then when she lays down, we sit down and we wait maybe 5 seconds and lean forward, give her permission, say the word booty when she gets it. Then everybody in the family does it at 5 seconds. Then we go through the same ritual, but now we wait 10 seconds after she lays down. And then 15, then I go 15, 30, 45 seconds, and 1 minute, and I go by 1 minute increments up to 15 minutes. Now 15 minutes is a long time to sit around not watching or watching your dog not get the treat. But if we put the treat between the couch and the TV show or a TV set, we can watch TV while we're doing this exercise, and the dog goes in our line of sight, we can correct them, so you can multitask. And usually when you're doing this sort of thing, when you're watching TV, the dog thinks, oh, I could get away with doing things. So one of the things that happened when we were doing the leadership exercise is people would get up and walk around, and the dog would use that as an opportunity to steal the treat. So make sure at first when you're doing the room is nice and quiet, but eventually we do want to have distractions. Like we have somebody that's putting ice in, and we had our camera person kind of rolled her eyes and looked like, be quiet, we're filming, which I appreciate, but that is the real world situation that we're going to have. So we want the dogs to practice under those real world situations so they learn not to do it, or how to perform during those situations. Now again, I think for the major issue for these dogs is the marking, so it's going to be very important that we only pet with a purpose. Even if we don't want to pet the dog ourselves, we're going to ask the dog to sit, and then we're going to pet it. We're going to make these dogs earn it, and that's going to help them develop more respect for the house and for the humans as authority figures, especially with the humans using the escalating consequences consistently as well. And after a while, the dogs are like, man, the guy came with the bully sticks, the hissing sound, and now everything is different. But dogs live in the now, and they're going to live a healthier, happier lifestyle with that structure, knowing I don't have to be responsible and yell at everybody who passes the house by barking at them, or bark when people come to the door. The humans have that handled. They've shown me they have it handled. Now, I'm probably forgetting some other things that we went over in the session. We went over this about a 4-hour session. Hopefully the Guardians will give me a nice review. But basically, if there were any questions or problems, I want them to call me or text me. Texting is the fastest way to reach me, but don't wait. I'd rather that you call me or text me sooner. If you wait 6 months, then your dog's going to practice a new behavior, and that might require an additional session. Usually I can just help people just with a quick phone call without charging them and just modifying the techniques we already went through. Willie, I'm almost done, buddy, I promise. All right, Willie? You're not going to look at, you're just going to look at the camera? That's probably better anyways. All right, I think he looks more like an Ewok than Chewbacca, but you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. All right, this is Willie, Chloe, and Zoey's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.